welcome to The Big Issue. My name is Beatrice Edu. This morning, we'll be looking into the Kpandai election issue and the fact that yesterday, I did tell you from morning, that the Supreme Court yesterday, by a 4-1 majority decision, said or quashed the Tamale High Court's decision earlier that ordered for a rerun of the Kpandai parliamentary election. And remember that the petition was filed earlier in November by the NDC, the governing NDC, and said that there were some irregularities within the election. The information that came out as of last year was that 41 out of the 152 polling stations had issues with irregularities, and the court, Tamale High Court, earlier quashed the election and asked for a rerun of that parliamentary election, and the MPP took it to the apex court, the Supreme Court, and yesterday we had the judgment coming in which quashed the earlier decision by the Tamale High Court. And already we've heard the lawyers of the governing NDC saying that it is likely that they will go to challenge this very decision. In fact, yesterday, after the court's judgment, the declaration of the judgment, we saw the Majority Chief Whip, Nelson Roxin Dapiamapo, indicating that the party was grieved by that decision. And of course, you would expect that the minority in Parliament will be rejoicing over this. And so we'll be going into this and moving forward what needs to be done. We'll also bring you that conversation about the attack on our journalists in the Northeast region and the stakeholders who have been speaking and what needs to be done to stop this increasing trend of attacks on journalists. We'll be going into that as well. Once again, thank you very much for joining us on the program. I will be having the video call with us Mr. Kofi Bento, who is private legal practitioner. He's also Vice President of Imani Africa. Of course, I do have right here in the studio with me Madam Rosalind Imoro Ayana, public interest advocate, and we'll be starting our conversation very shortly. I would also have with us Amma Pratt, who is lawyer and the lady in charge of the Vice President's media, and we would also have with us political analyst Samuel Lefriye join us via video call. But let's watch some of the lawyers and their reactions in court yesterday, immediately after the Supreme Court judgment. Actually, Matthew Nyendam, the MPP's Member of Parliament for the area, who has now been reinstated per this decision by the Supreme Court.
2012, I was elected and I served the people 2 terms. They know whom I am and I'm serving them honestly. So unfortunately, what happened, I give glory to God. In my life, whatever happens, I think that is ordained to happen. So I'm not going to run away from what happened. But I know very well that the people gave me the mandate. And by the grace of God, God is alive. My God is alive. Yes. He will obviously speak for me one day. And he has spoken to me for today. Amen. And I'm grateful. I'm going back to Parliament to continue to serve the people. Yes. Just like my youth organizer said, we are not serving MPP people in Kpandai or NDC people in Kpandai or CPP. I'm serving the people of Kpandai. Sure. That's what I'm doing. And every single individual in Kpandai, unless you are excessively partisan, you like Matthew's services. Sure. Yes. That's the man. That's our choice. So obviously, I am happy, but the Bible says, touch not my anointed, and do my prophet no harm. Yes. So I am grateful to the Supreme Court for making that work come to pass today, because I am serving my people, and I'm anointed to lead them. So shall it be.
And today is the day the Lord has made, and we shall rejoice in it.
Amen. Indeed, but the NDC is saying that once the ruling is out, which will be out in February 6th, go back to they're saying that this is the last 7 years of them.
That is their choice. I cannot challenge that. But I strongly believe that whatever be the case, I will lead the people.
And I watched Matthew Nyendam. He is the MPP Member of Parliament for the Kpandai constituency in the northern region, and we're bringing you a lot more reactions in the course of this conversation. But perhaps I should start with you, Madam Rosalind Imorayana. I mean, last year there were so many issues that came after the Tamale High Court decided to order for a rerun of this parliamentary election. But before you share your thoughts with us, let me say that we do have a video call by, we're joined actually by Dr. Samuel Lefriye, who is a political analyst. Doc, if you can hear me, good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, and to you and also your cherry viewers and listeners, and also to the panelists
I'll be
for the
coming to you
opportunity.
very shortly, but I wanted to get the first thoughts of Madam Rodelyn Imorayana of the things that happened, and now we have the Supreme Court cautioning the earlier decision of the Tamale High Court.
Good morning to our cherished viewers across the globe, and also good morning to all Ghanaians, and good morning to the three of us here. I think that when I heard of the Supreme Court ruling, I was really excited. I was excited not because it had been quashed per se, but because this was something that in the past we would have said, oh, it's going to be this way. It's either going to be 5-0, 7-0, for the state, of course. But in this instance, we saw that the Supreme Court had decided that it was not a good case and it was quashed. So I was excited that for once we have all been surprised by the outcome, because I feel that the NDC might have been expecting that they would win, and the MPP, I'm sure, were also expecting that because they did it before, it would be the same. So definitely it would go towards the NDC, but it didn't. It came back to the MPP. Elections are not won just by the votes and whatnot, but by irregularities within the process. And for me, when this case came up, I think I was one of the few people who said that I thought that it was not necessary. Looking at the numbers that the NDC has in Parliament and looking at that particular constituency, this is a constituency that is almost like a swing constituency. The NDC wins there sometimes, the MPP too has won sometimes. And when you look at the balance and you look at the differences in votes, especially when it comes to the presidential votes, so it's sometimes like 50 point, something, and somebody gets 49 or something. So it's quite close. So, and it's one of the constituencies also that you would find a presidential candidate winning and then the MP losing. You understand? And so sometimes you have to look at those things. And this was one of those situations where everybody thought that because the MPP, the NDC candidate, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, had won the presidential votes, then automatically the parliamentary votes must also go to the NDC. It didn't happen that way. And we are told that there were some irregularities and they wanted that rectified. But thankfully, after the High Court had brought out its ruling, it favored another rerun for things to be put right. But the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, I guess, feels that 41 out of that number, 41 polling stations, right, out of the larger number.
Out of 152.
Out of 152, and probably looking at the data and looking at the numbers that make up this 152 polling stations was such that it wouldn't make any difference. So it was best to let the MP continue. And we should also be guided by the fact that even when the NDC was asking for the MP to leave the Parliament House, the Speaker said that it was rather premature and stated some articles and some acts to support that for him to stay. So you guys understand that there were people who were genuinely concerned and genuinely had this feeling that there was no need, and that once, what's his name, Yamidi, was there.
Matthew
Yindam, well, was there. He was in the right place. So I am excited about it. At least the judiciary is working again. We're no longer looking at 5-0, 6-0, and all those things. But people are beginning to, at least, let's get people begin to have some faith in our judicial system, to know that, yes, now when things go to the Supreme Court, we will get people sitting down, not with emotions, not with any partisan minds and stuff. And I'll say it, plain, that those were the days that we used to think that our CJ was partisan. We used to think that the Supreme Court was political and all that. But it seems that we've just started with a new CJ, and I think this is one of his major political cases that the CJ has dealt with. And this is the way it has gone. So we hope that it would continue that way, and that we'll have more, what shall I say, more faith.
And results that seem to show the independence of the judiciary.
Yes. Definitely, it's showing that we believe that there are some independent minds in the judiciary.
You said earlier that from the beginning you thought that this wasn't necessary. So are you, or do I hear you say that you thought that going to court in the first place was just for the politics of it?
For me, at the beginning, yes. I think I sat here and I said that I felt that the NDC was not stretched. With just 100 and something, which even gives them 2/3, and then looking at the way we wanted the country to move, there was no need for this kind of distraction. That's the way I saw it. I read a lot about the history of that area and the candidates that the NDC had brought in, and the previous wranglings that made NDC to lose some seats and stuff like that. And I felt that at that moment, or at this moment in our history, once they had gotten the 2/3, it wasn't that they should be complacent, no, but this was one seat that I felt that let it go. Because there are about 7 other seats that I think the NDC wants to run after. And I am saying that if the EC had done its job well, this wouldn't have happened. So something definitely went wrong with the EC supervision. And so if there's anyone to answer questions, it should be the EC. What happened? What went wrong? How did this whole irregularity take place? So I am happy that this is the way it has gone. It makes governance now look real.
I'm coming to you, Madam Amapat, and let me say again that she's press secretary and also spokesperson for the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. Good morning to you. Welcome once again.
Good morning. Good morning.
Perhaps I should start from here. The Vice President has been touring a number of ministries and agencies. Aside from what she's told us on record, really, what will be her own assessment of things going on within the places that she's visited?
Well, perhaps we should start with the rationale, the reason why she's doing what she's doing. Briefly, if I may. I think that as Vice President of the Republic, she's been given, some ministries under her wing that she directly supervises, for lack of a more technical term. So those would be the gender ministry, the education ministry, the health ministry, And then, of course, we know that she also has oversight responsibilities over military and, that sector as well, the justice system, I call it. Right. So the thinking was that over time, what has existed is that you go to your boss as minister and you go and brief, and in those interactions, the minister might be accompanied by his deputy minister. If you are lucky, you'd have perhaps the chief director show up with the minister to meet the boss, to have that kind of interaction. However, Her Excellency Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman thought to do it another way. She's interested in the whole ministry. She wants to meet the staff of the ministry. She wants to know how things are going in the ministry, She wants to come and assess for herself, the look and feel, to touch, and know exactly what is happening. So instead of sit down and wait for 1 or 2 persons at the top hierarchy of the ministry to show up at her doorstep, she's moving. That's the rationale here. So we started with those specific ministries under her watch, the 3. We did that as phase 1. And then for phase 2, we did the ministers that are new. They have never been ministers before. They would have very peculiar challenges. We did that. Now we've broadened up, the scope. Also, I would say this, as and when there's an issue, like what happened at the transport ministry, immediately Her Excellency halted all of her day's activities, showed up there. Thankfully, that problem has been resolved,
It's still ongoing. There's still a problem with the transport sector.
I mean,
yesterday we were at the stations. We saw the queues.
The difficulties in the transport sector, we know that it's a problem. It's decades old. Since this issue has come, I've been tracing it all the way back to independence, our colonial time. You know, the structure itself, it's a whole problem. But we had very peculiar, very disruptive challenges that are not what it was when it was happening. What happened in December, very early days of January, we are not experiencing that anymore. As for the huge, big problems that have existed for decades, those ones still persist. And hopefully, with Her Excellency's intervention, with all of the sector ministries involved, with all of the stakeholders, the unions, you know, the transport unions, the passenger unions involvement, we will have a holistic resolution sometime, you know, in the future, our present future, you know, all of us hope for that. But in the interim, the queues are not what they were, you know, in the beginning of the month or towards the end of the year. So we have had some resolution, you know, to that problem. But the last places we've been to have been the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry. We've been to the Energy and Green Transitions Ministries. And those were success stories, you know, to hear from the Energy Minister. He did a presentation to present to us all the decisions that have gone into us feeling it directly in our pockets. When you go to the petrol pumps, the experience is not what it used to be. That success story, to be able to relay it to the boss and say, thank you for all the role that you played, you know, from perhaps drafting our manifesto to where we are today, where we are feeling it when we go to the fuel pumps, you know, all of those engagements, to listen to the lands minister speak about his challenges with Galamsey, to speak about his successes with Galamsey, to speak about ways in which the executive can support him, you know, to perhaps struck more success, as all of us are hoping that he would, in that specific sector. I would say that it's graceful leadership, it's impactful leadership, and all of us as Ghanaians are happy for where it's going. You know,
you're
so
happy
far.
for where it's going so far. Now to the Kpandai parliamentary election. Yesterday, the Supreme Court quashed the Tamale High Court earlier decision, which ordered for a rerun of that election. Monitoring what happened even prior to the court's decision, would you agree with those who say that perhaps the evidence was all written on the wall, the 21 days argument of the minority, the jurisdiction of the High Court at the time, and all of that?
I mean, I would say that for any judicial process, you know, for any judicial process that pans out the way this one is panning out, as a Ghanaian, I'm excited. You know, I have to say, I enjoy the process as much as I enjoy the outcomes. It's important. We are building a democracy. And so the process is crucial. You know, we need to have confidence and trust in a process that is fair, in a process that is independent, in a process that is not sort of sanctioned by the executive. This decision didn't go our way. Clearly.
Yeah.
It didn't. But I'm sitting here and I'm saying that I'm happy about it. Mm-hmm. Because what it means is that even if we have issues with the decision, and of course we would have issues with the decision, there's a process for redress, and we would use that process. We are happy with every outcome that is steeped in fairness, judicial fairness. And so, like the Honorable Roxanne Dofia Makpo has been saying, like Mr. IT and, you know, Director
Rashid Tanko,
like he has been saying, there are issues that need redress, and we will do that. What did the High Court say? The High Court said the scale and the nature of the irregularities, as they saw at the time, they felt, went to the roots of the election results. That's crucial. If you have any election results that is steeped in irregularities by the High Court's estimation, on a scope, on a scale, on a nature that goes to the results of the elections, that is not for me to say. just for all of us to agree that this is an election that needs to be taken a look at again. Because all of us know the importance of elections, how it's crucial to the rule of law, how this democracy that we are all nursing needs to be nurtured, right? And upheld in such a way that we are confident and we can trust in what we have.
But the Supreme Court didn't think that 41 polling station irregularities could determine the outcome of 152.
The Supreme Court hasn't said all that.
The Supreme Court is yet to bring the full ruling on the 6th of February this year. And one of the things that people are considering, for instance, is also the jurisdiction as well as the 21-day, all of that.
I think that the Supreme Court's issue is strictly one of procedural compliance. That's it. That's the beginning and the end. Procedural compliance. You have 21 days within which to take an action. You fail to take an action within that 21 days. Therefore, that's the end. We are not going to look into everything else. This is what it is. And, as somebody that's still, a student, of the law, and a student of the Constitution, and a student of processes, and a student of democracy, and a student of the rule of law, this is what it is. Procedural compliance is important. It's key, right? We are waiting for the 6th of February when we get to know the nitty-gritty, where we can now dot the I and cross the T's of the reasoning, perhaps the deeper reasoning of the Supreme Court. My side says we are waiting for that. Based on that, we will know what next to take. As it stands now, the issue is one. It says, what procedural compliance, we did not comply by the 21 days. The arguments about whether, that happened as a fault of ours or that happened as a fault of somebody else, What I am saying is that the main issues persist. The main issues of irregularities, the main issues of we literally relocated a collation center without all active stakeholders and participants being aware. The main issues of the results are contested in 41 polling stations. The main issues of there are results that are still set to be illegible. So those issues persist. Now, are we happy to sweep all of those issues under the carpet of procedural compliance? And that will be a legal conversation, a legal debate that I'm very happy to wait to listen to. And like I've been saying, in this administration, we have gone to school. We've been taken to school over and over and over and over again about, the Constitution and how it works. Every day I learn new things. Every day I experience new arguments. Every day I'm faced with superior legal arguments. And I'm happy for the process. I want to know if all of these irregularities that go to the roots of the election results can be swept under the carpet of, procedural compliance. That's an interesting legal debate that, again, I'm happy to experience and learn from. But the issues persist. And like my side have said, those that are directly responsible for the case or those that are directly dealing with the issues are saying, let's wait and see.
Let's wait and see. Yesterday, we heard Dafia Mekpo, the majority chief whip, indeed saying that the party was grieved by the decision of the Supreme Court. The reason he gave that indication that there would be a possibility of review. There are those who argue that there's a slim chance of the NDC being able to overturn this decision. Is that something that concerns you?
I keep saying that I'm happy for the process to play out. The NDC is not a side that would interfere. The NDC is not a side that would use its executive powers to try and lord it over what the actual process has to be. The NDC is that side that is suddenly loosened, in the law courts. It didn't used to happen, right? So I'm happy for the process to take its full course. At the end of the day, Ghana will be the winner, regardless whether the NDC wins in court or the MPP wins in court. We are building a democracy. Right? We are building a democracy. We are building a country that is solid, steeped on solid ground. And so at the end of the day, whichever side wins, Ghana is the winner. But I'm saying that there are real issues that needs to be looked at. And for me, people say that, the NDC already has an overwhelming majority. What would this one seat do? Then what's the point of elections? Then what's the point of election? Then what's the point of this democracy that we are all shouting about? If the NDC deserves all the seats in parliament, give it to us. Then what are we doing? So for me, it's not about the number of seats the NDC already has in. It's about the will of the people. If the people within a constituency decide that we want the NDC to represent us, let the will of the people work.
Let the will of the people work, you say. I'm coming to you, Dr. Samuel Efriye, as a political scientist. What's your interpretation of the Supreme Court's decision and the implications for us?
It's quite interesting to see some of these things happen. And, you realize that the Chief Justice leadership is now being put in a test to see how the courts are run in terms of justice and fairness as well. So some of these things, when things are being sent to the court, I always say that in Ghana, one of the best institutions that we should safeguard is the courts. Because if any issue comes in, whatever the issue, the court is there to settle. And we have various levels of the court. So if a high court has given judgment and the process has led to the Supreme Court, fine, I think that is how things are supposed to run. And it comes along with these kind of perceptions about our court, especially the Supreme Court, where some people think that it's been one-sided, others also think the other ones. But this is a test. And some of us are observing afar to see how the judiciary tends to make the judiciary as it was some time ago. So we are all, and this is a test case. And we hope that the subsequent ones that will be coming, we will see how the court is being seen. As the NDC and people will say that the law is the law, the judiciary is working. Yes, they have always been working, but maybe some issues cropped up within their time, or maybe some kind of the period of times. But we believe that I'm talking about the new Chief Justice, and that is what we people are skeptical whether it was a political position, it was this or that. So, and having these kind of signs is a way of creating the hope, especially the other side that thinks that it was a political oriented appointment, and this might give sides to the government of the day. So it's a very good start, and we believe that if it is continued, let the law be the law, as my co-panelists and everyone is saying, let the law be the law. And I think that it will make our democracy more attractive and more confident for Ghanaians to believe in our courts, and that is good. But you can realize that the Kpandai seat, is something that I side with one of the panelists that was saying that it was not necessary, because you realize that the number of votes and the polling stations that were supposed to fight for, and the margins more than 3,000. It could be something. And this is what I would like to suggest to the NDC, that they have to tread cautious. It's not everything that you have to jump in and tend to make it more partisan and more political and think that you can just jump in. If you're not careful, the people will say, hey, this, you have to stop. So they have to move strategically, and they have to calculate their risk as well. If not, and they tend to be more political because they are in government. And you might think that you can just claim any seat when there's any hope or any opportunity, then you can end up having a point of situation where you might not see your way out in something. So I think that this should serve as a caution for the NDC to be a little bit cautious about where they easily jump in, tend to play it, and some of their comments. Also, if you're not careful and it goes to court, it might also come out along with certain kind of perception towards the judiciary. So it's a good attempt, and we believe that the politics that is comes along with this, we all will learn and try to improve our politics, and at the same time, but I think that the Supreme Court is trying to exert her authority in terms of some of these issues. And I believe that it will create a lot of hope and interest for our judiciary.
It will create a lot of hope and interest for our judiciary. You talk about the need for the governing NDC to move strategically, but I don't know whether you heard also Madam Amma Pratt there, her explanation being that there's a need to ensure that democracy works and it works properly, and also the need for the will of the people to be represented correctly. So if the NDC felt that indeed there was or there were irregularities in 41 out of the 152 constituencies in polling stations, in order to ensure that the will of the people are properly or is properly represented, what is wrong with going to court to challenge what you think is wrong?
Well, there's nothing wrong of going to court to have your grievances being heard to and tried to the court to settle. But what I'm saying is that in these constituency or these elections, we're talking about numbers. And numbers are the key to determine whether most of the time there has to be a rerun, there has to be, because when you look at the gap between what they are claiming for and using that to overturn all the various polling stations. You see, it's about what your evidence to prove that the polling stations, because every situation happens at the polling station. And when the court, I think that the judgment are not, maybe not centered on, is yet to have, we are yet to have access to the ruling, but you cannot seriously give an evidence that there was a total irregularities toward, that is all the polling stations. There were some, and the some, you look at the numbers, whether it can change the will of the people. At the same time, if the irregularities that happened was all over the polling station, that is also another situation. So where the irregularities happen, and the numbers that will affect the outcome of whoever represents the constituency is what matters mostly. And this is where mostly the lawyers and the judges look at it. And that is why I'm saying that the NDC need to be cautious that if they see anything small, or maybe they think that they can use the government in power of the day or trying to use it, that is why I'm trying to draw the attention. The elections, we cannot devoid of irregularities, but at the end of the day, does it affect the outcome of the people who represent them? And these are the numbers that we look at, and also the number of polling stations. So if these things are done, if for whatever being the case, if most of the polling stations, there were irregularities and it would have affected the outcome, I think that the Supreme Court will not have come to that conclusion. So here, the dynamics are different, and every constituency, the issues are also different. And I believe that this coming out, there's nothing wrong going, but if you are going, you need to be very cautious, because the perception, assuming that the ruling have gone to the other side, then you see that people will say that the court is on this side, and then this and that, and then the politics will come out of it. But looking at the facts, I think that those are the judges or the Supreme Court judges are not, when you look at their background, the experience, so they know what the law says, and they are also the law at some time. So I believe that it was a good judgment, and as I was saying earlier, the NDC need to be cautious in some of these situations when it happens, because it has come to that if there's any rerun or if there's any kind of election that comes along, the NDC think that because they have some experience, so they can easily be swayed by the government in power. At the same time, they're thinking of using the resources and other things to take away some constituency. And that is why if you don't have a good case, you don't have a good situation in terms of how things are done, and you think that you can jump in to claim any seat, that is what I'm saying, that the NDC need to be cautious. They have to move strategically. They have to move on well with some kind of seats that they think that it can easily be taken away from the MPP. So I'm not just discounting the issue about going to court, but I think that they have to be very cautious, as I was saying earlier.
They have to be very cautious. Let me acknowledge the presence of Mr. Kofi Bento, who is lawyer and vice president of Imani Africa. Mr. Bento, I'm coming to you in a jiffy, but let me ask you perhaps this one question before I come to you, Mr. Kofi Bento. And I'm referring to you, Dr. Samuel Efriye. You talked about what this means, as in this judgment means for the country politically and in terms of the governance of the country. But there are those who are also criticizing the minority that when judgments go well, you praise the court and say that everything is working. Yet when it goes against you, then you begin to call the court and the judges names. What's your view on that as well, and what that also means for us moving forward?
You know, Beatrice, sometimes it's so interesting. That is the politicians and politics for you, you know. When it goes to your side, you see how you smile, you see how you become jubilant. And I think yesterday we had some kind of the MPP jubilating here and there. But sometimes they will say that the court is not this, the court is that, you know, when you ask them to justify. The same happens in the NDC when the MPP was in power, when things go. So decisions of the court are always seen in a political difference, in the political perspective. And even the normal courts that we go as individuals, when it goes on your way, the way you see the court to be a court of competent jurisdiction. But if it goes on the other side, then we will tend to induce, or we tend to conclude that the judges have taken this, the judges have done that. So in the normal process of ruling at our various courts, no matter the level, there will be some kind of perspective and a kind of views towards whether it goes on your side or it doesn't go on your side. But at the end of the day, the thing that will need to be seen is that, was the law being implemented? Was the law being said about the situation? That is all. And I like the way that this theme goes, the law is the law. That should be the guiding principle of each and every one at any situation. And you know, when the law is being implemented, or maybe the law is being used to make ruling or judgment, you see, that's why we have various courts. If you have any differences, as we said about the Honorable Damafia Court saying that they are going to look at the case, and then these are all political. If they want to go for appeal, they will add some numbers to the existing one for the numbers to be reviewed. So the politics, yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'll have to come back to you very briefly. Mr. Bentol is actually joining us briefly, so I need to come to him now to share his thoughts with us before he takes leave of us. Good morning to you, Mr. Kofi Bentol. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I know the Supreme Court's the details of the judgment will be coming out on the 6th of February, and we'll get to hear and know the reasoning behind this decision giving us yesterday. But looking at the circumstances and the information out so far, what's your own interpretation of what we heard yesterday as a lawyer?
Well, I think that is what the Supreme Court is there for. Where somebody feels aggrieved by a ruling or a judgment, they have a right, inherent right, to go to the Supreme Court and have the Supreme Court take another look at the issue. When people say the law is the law, sometimes it gives the wrong impression as if the law is something that is cast in stone, as if it is mathematics. The law is the law, but it is interpreted by human beings. And those human beings, whether they are judges or not, can make mistakes. That is why we have, appeals courts and we have the Supreme Court. And when those mistakes are made, even on the same law, it can be overturned. So people have a right to do so, and that is what happened. The point that we all have to appreciate is that when the matter is before a court, as in the Supreme Court or any other court where the ruling hasn't come out, people should not go ahead and act as if they know how it's going to turn out. So for me, this is the law at work. The Supreme Court has done its job. And what it has done is not strange. It has overturned the ruling of a lower court because there were mistakes. And we all move on. The problem is where people take the ruling of a lower court, which has been challenged, and then they proceed as if that ruling cannot change. In this particular instance, the EC and Parliament acting as if the matter cannot change, and then going ahead to arrange a by-election. Today, as we speak, whatever money was spent on that by-election is wasted. So we all have to appreciate that elections are not won at the polling station. They are won if they are challenged. in a court of law, because a court would declare who the winner actually is. If we understand these things, we would all be better off for it. So that's how we should see this present ruling. And in future, people should wait for the judges to conclude the matter before they take steps.
And I did say that the details of the ruling will be coming out on the 6th. But prior to the filing of the petition at the court and the decision of the Tamale High Court to order for a rerun, there were already issues. 41 polling stations apparently having irregularities. That's 41 out of 152. And after the Tamale High Court also decided, as in ordered for a rerun, there were also issues of the timing of the filing and the jurisdiction of the court as well. And as much as we await the details of the ruling, to what extent, as a lawyer, do you believe these could have influenced that 4-1 majority decision of the Supreme Court yesterday?
The decision is based on the facts as were presented before the courts. It is based on the evidence that was presented before the courts, and then it's based on the law applied to those facts. Now, things happen, and on radio and TV, and generally speaking, people can say what they like and what they want. But when you go before a judge in a court, you will be forced to back whatever statements you are making, whatever claims you are making, okay, and bring the proof for it to be examined. So I can give you my view. If you have 40 out of 100, okay, giving you problems, clearly that's a minority. But if those 40 are a sample, okay, that changes everything, because if that's a sample, then it's possible that there were more than 40. So the thing that people must appreciate is that in open commentary like what we are doing now, you will never know the actual facts. But in a proper court, you will be forced to bring the facts and the evidence. And when the judges look at it, they will apply the law, and then you get the ruling that you got. So we should all be, tempered, or we should manage some of the things that we say when we don't have the full facts. I do believe that the facts as were presented before the Supreme Court and the evidence that was adduced to back those facts is the reason why they have arrived at the judgment that they have arrived at. So some of us who have all these, especially non-lawyers who comment freely, should appreciate that when a court goes through the facts, it has superior information, and its ruling, therefore, is above anybody's contemplation or general discussions and general pronouncements.
Yesterday, we heard the Majority Chief Whip Nelson Roxin Dapia-Mekpo saying that the NDC was grieved by this decision of the Supreme Court. And in addition to him, we heard other people giving the indication that there's a possibility of a review. Looking at what has transpired so far, do you foresee an overturning of this decision by the Supreme Court?
I personally do not foresee an overturning of the decision, mainly because of the technicality of the review. A review means there will be 7 judges, which is 4 plus 3. So if you have a 4-1, okay, and it's not likely that the 4 will change their mind except some new evidence is adduced, then you are going to have a 4 against 3, so you're going to lose again. So based on that mathematics alone, I think they will advise themselves to not go for a review. But sometimes the case can be so strong, and where there is new evidence, okay, they will have to avail themselves of the opportunity to go for a review. And when that happens, we should all wait, because you don't know what they will claim before the judges. And if the ruling comes, we should all have the magnanimity to agree that, they have looked at it and they've come to their conclusion. So it is possible, but I don't think it is probable.
You don't think it's probable? Parliament is resuming...
I said it's possible, but I don't think it's probable. It's not likely because of the 4 who ruled in one direction.
Parliament is resuming on Tuesday, and this judgment is already in. What should be the legal course, as it were, after this judgment, although the full judgment is not in yet in terms of the reasoning?
Well, the decision is in. So the full judgment is just details of how the decision arrived. So since the decision is in, the matter is settled. All right? Now, what Parliament should have done, which is what I said from the beginning, was to have held its hands and not changed anything until this decision came out. Now, having gone ahead and done all the things that they've done, they have to now reverse it to the status quo ante, reverse things to what they were before, okay? And that is going to create some situation for them, but they don't have a choice. The decision is in. The reasoning behind the decision is one thing. It doesn't change the decision, so they have to act according to the decision. So when Parliament opens, they have to restore Mr. Nyindam, and they have to reverse everything that they have done. In fact, if there was anything that was due him that they didn't give him, they have to give him. What this decision means is that he was never removed as an MP. That is what it means in law. So all those things that they did were in error.
So it wouldn't require the lawyers of Mr. Nyindam to first serve Parliament first with this judgment before this restoration you talk about?
No, of course, they have to be served formally. Okay? Sometimes the court will itself advance it. Sometimes the speaker can take judicial notice of it, depending on the circumstance. But the lawyers have to do their due diligence and properly inform Parliament that this is the position of the Supreme Court, and therefore their client was never removed. And therefore, they should proceed to restore him to the position he was in. That they have to do.
There are people who say some of these issues that come out in court really help to strengthen our democracy. But looking at the circumstances that surround some of these cases, what should be the lesson for us really moving forward as a lawyer?
Everything that happens according to due process and the rule of law strengthens the democracy. In fact, even the negative things, they do strengthen the democracy. We will learn from it. So what we have to do in the first place is to maintain this due process and rule of law. The people who rise up against due process and rule of law are our true enemies. That's the first thing we need to know. Whether it goes for you or against you, we are all better off under this kind of due process and rule of law. Okay? And the lesson that we must learn is the lesson that some of us were speaking about from the beginning. That elections are not won at polling stations. The polling station will do the counting and will do the preliminary declaration. If it is not challenged, you can go ahead and then say you have won. But immediately that is challenged, you must understand that you are just one hog in the wheel of many hogs. And the matter will be determined in the court. So you should all wait for the courts to make that determination. We have had 30 years of this kind of experience, but somehow people still don't learn, and we keep on saying things like elections are won at the police station. It's not true. And this is another reason why we all have to step back a bit. Whenever we have an election, let's understand that what comes out of polling station counting is the prima facie result. Okay? It is the first draft of what the electorate believes or what the electoral commission believes is the outcome. If it is not challenged, if it is above board, then so be it. But immediately it is challenged, we all have to learn that we have to wait and let the courts make a determination. The lesson also is that we have to develop systems which allow for adjudication within time so that that determination can be made quickly, which is why I, for one, agree with the Constitutional Review Commission that we should move the election forward to November so that there will be time for adjudication and then these things will be settled before inaugurations happen. So we all have to admit, we all have to accept, we all have to find a way to submit to this proposition that the judges are the supervisors of every democracy, and until they have spoken, it is not final.
My last question to you, what should be the kind of politicking in such areas where there is contestation of election results?
It should be just observing the law, okay? Whoever you are, whatever politicking you are doing or campaign you are doing, do it within the law. Again, if you go into an election and you win, if you are not challenged, go ahead and then declare yourself a winner and take your office. But if you are challenged, do it within the law. Allow the legal process to go through. And while it's going through, hold your hand. That is what the rule of law is. And all of us are better served, if we submit to it.
Mr. Bento, thank you so much for having time to speak to us.
Thank you, too.
And you heard there and watched him, Kofi Bento, he's lawyer and vice president of Imani Africa, sharing his legal perspectives with us on this Kpandai issue and the decision of the Supreme Court to quash an earlier ruling by the Tamale High Court, which ordered for a rerun of that parliamentary election. I'm coming back to you, Madam Ayana. I did say earlier that Parliament resumes on Tuesday. What are your expectations?
Well, I don't think anything is going to happen. First and foremost, the celebration within the MPP camp is open, is out there. You saw people jubilating in the area in Kpandai, and of course the usual press conferencing and whatnot. I think that Parliament will be cool. This shouldn't create any tension. I mean, no matter what happens, and the MPP still holds 87 and the NDC has 2/3. You understand? So if you win a case that is already in your yard, there's nothing that should make you go out there and try to show any form of bravado or anything. So I think I'm expecting that they'll behave themselves. I am really expecting, because of late we've had so many things happening in Parliament that is not pleasant. And it all has to do with elections, even internal elections within political parties is creating problems within Parliament. And I'm expecting that this time round, we will not have that. Our parliamentarians must be serious. They're in there for serious business. And therefore, this has happened. The country has accepted or whatever. If NDC decides to go for an appeal, it is their right, within their rights to do that. And as such, the jubilation, yes, you can jubilate in your small corner, in your small minority corner, but let parliamentary activities go on.
Let parliamentary activities go on.
But I wanted to ask
Kofi Bento?
No, Amma, about the vice president's, especially in the transport sector. I think that one of the places that you should be talking to or looking at is the transport, is the roads ministry. Because if you look closely at what is happening, it is because there are very few roads leading to almost everywhere. So it's one road and that road leads to almost everywhere. But if we could have some other roads, at least that will ease the congestions on our road. Because if you take from 37, you're going to Medina. Now it's a bit better because you can take the Bahama Road and go through and find your way out. But then if you're going to Kaswa and those other places, you have to go through just one. And that same road leads to Cape Coast, that same road leads to... So the congestion will definitely be there. But if we could get some more inner roads, then maybe it will help. That's what I think.
I wanted to get your thoughts, your final thoughts perhaps on this before we move on. And I will get that of... yes, you can respond to her, please.
I have two things. So, good call, clearly. Her Excellency, Professor Nana Jino-Pukwajiman herself, speaks about all of the relevant sectors being at that table for that conversation. So, definitely the roads ministry is in there, in that conversation. Okay. But to also say that then this government is ahead of this conversation, because we've heard of the big push, which is, primarily targeted at roads and infrastructure.
Those are major roads. We are talking of inner city roads.
Now, when the conversation started, you recall me talking about tracing the problem all the way to colonization, where our roads were structured in such a way that it goes to where the resources, and then it takes you to the exit point. So we have peculiar challenges as a country. I dare say, as one of many developing countries, where our whole setup, our whole structure, our whole existence was to the benefit or the enjoyment of external forces, right? Where we were producing so that our produce would be sent elsewhere. And roads were structured to aid that process. Things were done to aid just that process. Today, we can have conversations around how do we build our infrastructure to help us, to help our development internally, which is what I think essentially at the heart of what Madam is saying is the request. And I'm saying that don't worry, this government is ahead of that curve, and that conversation is being had. And yes, good call, it will be listened to. To comment on, all the admonitions that have come to the NDC government, and to say that I am a little surprised by it, because as I sit here, as I've heard the Honorable Roxanne Dofia-Makos speak, as I've heard Computer speak, as I've heard everybody from the NDC side speak to this matter, our voice has been one, the rule of law. Nobody within the NDC has spoken about acting outside of the jurisdiction of the justice system. Nobody. So when I hear calls of the NDC should calm down, the NDC should be, I get a little confused. Are we having the same conversation? You heard me this morning speak about the fact that even though it seems as though we lost, I'm happy about the outcome because ultimately Ghana wins. The NDC is set on this reset agenda. And for us, the judiciary is a key stakeholder, key component of any reset, that can happen. The NDC is that government that is losing in court. It wasn't the case before. We were always losing in opposition. That is the truth, right? Today we are in government. There has been no executive interference. There's been and we are still losing in court. So give the NDC its flowers. This is a government that is very committed to the rule of law. But I keep insisting, the rule of law itself, within the spirit of rule of law, says that let the process work. So all Roxanne, the Honorable, and everybody else is saying that we will follow due process. We are waiting for the 6th of February. Let all the details be known to us. If the details are not in conformity with the will of the people of Ghana, the NDC as a government side, as a responsible political party, will take it further. Ultimately, do you not want a side that works for your interests? At the end of the day, it's the will of the people that we have to uphold. We have to uphold that. Just a small, and I don't even know if I should, but I will, a small disagreement with Mr. Bentil on, he said something about elections are not won at the polling.
Yes, but at the courts, you need to challenge it.
I completely disagree with him. I agree with our former EC chair, Mr. Afarijan, when he says that elections are won and lost at the polling station. I agree with him. Because all of this conversation would be moot. We would not be having all of this conversation if everything had happened at the polling center as should have happened. When we go and cast our votes as Ghanaians, we expect the process to run as is. That is the reason why a lot of us go and cast our votes and we don't move away. We stand and wait. And we go through that rigorous process of 1, 2, 3, watching that whole process because we believe that our vote will count for something. My excitement about this government is because we are restoring voter confidence. We are letting the Ghanaian know that who you vote for matters. It goes directly to your pocket. When you go to the poll, a fueling station to buy fuel, who you vote for matters in the cost of that fuel, right? How you live, how you experience being a Ghanaian. These things are important. Now, the polling center, the polling station is crucial to this process. The only reason we should end up in a court is when things don't go the way that we want. So for me, that's the beginning. Should be the end. However, of course, if it's not, then we rely on the court system, on the justice system. But I agree, and I hope that all of us will work to make that statement that Mr. Afarijan made, that elections are won and lost at the polling station.
At the polling stations. Dr. Afriyie, let me get your final thoughts on this and your own expectations as well as Parliament resumes on Tuesday. Dr. Afriyie, are you on the line with us? Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm on the line. Yeah. All right, okay. We're expecting that the Parliament will resume and try to make Parliament as not be as it was. Parliament has been seen as a place of, should I use the word in quotes, a place where there's a lot of confusion and people or things are not done in a way according to, but they say that they have their own party, but our Parliament doesn't have much kind of a good brand in terms of how things are run. Yeah, perspective of our democracy because of previous experience of confusion and people who are throwing blows here and there. Believe that the new dispensation because every Parliament has its own dynamics, and since this Parliament has majority supermajority from the MP, that is the NDC, I think they can come together and avoid some of these misbehavior or indiscipline in court, because sometimes it's an eyesore to see some of these things happen. We believe that things will work well. The right thing needs to be done. If anybody have any grievances, or as the minority group will always, they will have their way of doing things. But we need to have a good brand for our parliament. And I know that this time the speaker will put his feet down, will try to do things according to parliamentary procedure and allow things to run as parliament should be. So I'm expecting more. I'm expecting more bills. I'm expecting things to change the destiny of the people of this country. And we believe that at the end of the day, Parliament will stand as a true sense of our democracy in relation to the judiciary, as now there's a new leader coming along with to lead the courts. And we have high expectation from our parliamentarians, and they should, in court, behave well.
They should, in court, behave well. Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel Efriye. And I want to move to that issue that shocked us again about the military personnel attacking our correspondent in the Northeast region, Solomon Kanawole, just because he was recording. And over the course of the week, we've been bringing you details of that as well. We've had the Media Foundation for West Africa condemning this and asking for investigations. And also yesterday, the Ghana Journalists Association, led by its president, Albert Jomfo, also held a press conference equally condemning it and asking for the interdiction of the military officials involved, and also any other disciplinary actions that ought to be taken, should be taken against those officials. And we'll bring you that footage from Albert Jomfo's press conference yesterday. But Madam Ayan, I'm coming back to you. This is not the first time. There have been so many attacks on journalists. But before I get your thoughts, though, I think we can watch Albert Jomfo during that press conference yesterday and the details he gave us.
Exercising their powers. Why would they seize his phone after subjecting him to inhuman attack? Seize his phone, flash his phone, so he wouldn't get any information. And even messages that were sent earlier to people on that day were all deleted before the phone was recycled. This is how inhuman some people can be. And this is unacceptable, unlawful, and deeply troubling. It reflects a dangerous disregard for the right of civilians and journalists, and undermines public confidence in the professionalism of the Ghana Armed Forces. The GJA condemned this assault in the strongest terms and calls on the military high command to immediately investigate the incident, identify the personnel involved, and apply appropriate sanctions. We further demand that the matter be treated with the seriousness it deserves, and that the victim is offered protection and support. Attacks on journalists by military personnel, whether in the line of duty or otherwise, are completely intolerable and must not be normalized under any circumstances. We will await the position of the military high command. We are very much keenly and interested in the matter, and we are ready to react and respond to any position they come out with. We hope that they will be very fair, firm, objective, and candid with their position. This is the media they are talking about. They can't use our own media. You can't issue a statement which will be contrary to the truth and expect our people to cover it, to give you the needed mileage. We will await the position of the military high command.
And you watched the Albert Jomfo. He's the president of the Ghana Journalists Association, obviously expressing his disgust about this very incident. And so what we are told by our reporter in the Northeast region is that he was there to record an exercise that was going on with the military. And without a lot of interaction, the attack happened because they disagreed with the fact that he was recording. And I would want us to bring you the narration he gave us. I'll bring you that in the course of the conversation. But I was asking earlier about the fact that this is not the first time that we're seeing journalists being attacked. In fact, other civilians have equally been attacked by soldiers as well. What, in your opinion, is fueling these unprovoked attacks?
It's unfortunate that this has to happen to a journalist. The attacks are not what we want as a country. But then, at the end of it, I'd want to ask how journalists operate outside the main, shall I say, headquarters of the various media houses. Mm-hmm. If you're a journalist and you are in the outskirts of a particular place, or once you get to a place that is zoned up as a security area, you must report yourself. I don't know if the journalist was able to go and tell the military that, introduce himself. I am so and so, and I'm covering this area, or I'm covering your exercise. Or at least, if you go to the police station, to report yourself and let them know that I'm in this jurisdiction, so I need for you to look after me. You understand? I don't know if you do that or they do that. Why are the military in Wali Wali? The military are in Wali Wali because of a fallout of a problem in Boko. And a case that has been resolved, a judgment that has been given, and one side are not happy. During the course of the week, I think that was last week or so, some elements within the Wali Wali enclave threatened to disrupt the free movement of the people coming from Boko, Bolgatanga, towards Tamale and Accra. They threatened mayhem. They threatened to burn tires. They threatened to shoot at buses or attack buses. So the military went in there to keep the peace. This is also at the heart of other things that happened, where I'm trying as much as possible not to open up old wounds, because we are all trying to bring peace to Boko. But I'm just saying that the attack on the journalists is worrisome. But at the same time, one would want to also observe and also say that sometimes some of the journalists, depending on which side of the divide that person is coming from, some are not professional enough. You see, you must exhibit some professionalism and neutrality. I heard that they deleted.
They flashed his phone.
Well, the word I heard was, I don't know about flashing, but I heard that certain portions were deleted. I wish that maybe the army could tell us what was in that. You understand? I'm saying this because there has been so many things happening between Wali Wali, that Wali Wali enclave, affecting the peace and tranquility of the people of Boko. So I can only say that it is wrong for the military to beat up people, to harass people, or to attack journalists, especially, who are supposed to bring out the news and the information governing all these areas so that we'll know what is happening. And I also side with the Ghana Journalists Association, asking that there be investigation, if possible, prosecution. This is not the first time that this thing has happened. The military beat up people in Garu some time ago. People died out of that. We called for investigations. It never happened. So I think that it's a call also on the military hierarchy to be up and doing. We expect that as soldiers, they know exactly what they're supposed to do. You're not supposed to go and beat up people, harass people, and create more problems. So I will ask that this issue be investigated. And if only they can find the perpetrators, because they've never been found. They beat up people and they are never found. You understand? So, but this time around, let's hope that with a new government in place, maybe the resetting agenda will touch the military top hierarchy to really go into this and to advise the military against those acts. But at the same time also, I would want to take this opportunity to advise the people of Wali Wali. Wali Wali was never part of the problems we were having in Boko. But somehow, some miscreants and some devious elements have brought in Wali Wali, when Wali Wali virtually has nothing to do with the Boko issue. So it is a duty on the Wali Wali inhabitants to flush out these miscreants in their midst that is giving them a bad name and always bringing them trouble. Wali Wali has always been a peaceful place. We've driven from Boko to through Wali Wali to other parts of this country without any incidents until recent, when they decided to make Wali Wali a targeted place to harass and maim Quashes. So I expect that this whole idea of Wali Wali having a curfew, Wali Wali being molested, by military, will actually make them to stand up and say that enough is enough. It is not our fight, and we will not be brought into this fight only for us to be at the receiving end of brutalities. Once they do that, I am sure that the people of Wali Wali will be enjoying their peace once again. And the rest of us also will be enjoying our peace. Because what is happening and the kinds of pronouncements that are coming from outside that area, it's of a security threat to this country. And the military will do anything that it thinks it has to do to bring peace to that area. So it is unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that this happened to the journalist. I wish we could hear what he has to say and how it happened. Was he standing somewhere? Was he part of it? Like if he was taking pictures, a lot of the time, security work is such that sometimes they don't even want you to capture those pictures. So was he doing that? What did he have in his phone? Did they find anything incriminating in his phone? You get me? I don't know whether he's a native of Mamprugu or he's from somewhere. You understand? A native of Wali Wali or somewhere else. So all of these things will advise us and educate us on why the military did what it did.
Let me get your thoughts as well, Amaprat.
Yeah, I mean, as a former media practitioner myself, as somebody who myself has held a camera, held a microphone, somebody else had a camera, held a microphone to someone's face and be threatened myself, with physical violence, I get uncomfortable, around such conversations because I know firsthand how traumatic these experiences can be. In my case, nobody touched me. It was just the threat of it, and I remember how I felt. Now, I can imagine then actually being,
subjected to that.
Right. And not by individual, but by the military. You know how we feel about the military and, how... So this is very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. These are things that should go away, from our national discourse. These are the horrors that we do not want to see going forward. I would say, I hope as categorically as my voice would permit, that the media is just as crucial an estate as every other estate of this realm. The media has a crucial role it continues to play. The media needs to be empowered to continue to play the role that we play. I'm not going to sit here and act like we don't get it wrong sometimes, because we do. We do get it wrong sometimes. We do get it wrong in terms of how we gather our news, in terms of how we interpret the news that falls within our palms, in terms of how, but hey, it's a human institution. We are bound to make mistakes, but I would wish that we are also given the same grace. Look at me saying we.
Once a journalist, forever a journalist, they say.
Journalist, always a journalist.
So I really hope that the same graces that are extended to parliamentarians, the same graces that are extended to every other estate of the realm is extended to the media as well. Let me say that I know that under this administration, the full extent and the full cycle moments for this issue would be arrived at. This is not one that would be left, unchecked, because somebody was saying, I forgot, one of your panelists was speaking about perception and how it's important and how it's crucial. This goes beyond perception. Somebody has actually been bitten. It's important that we get, yes, it's terrible. It's terrible. But also to caution security agencies and remind, not that they don't know, they know. I know that they know. I know that we have very competent people at the, realms of affairs. I know that they know, but just to remind, that it's important that our law enforcers are seen as our friends. That era of brutality, of that pushing, I don't think we are in that era anymore. And for the managers of our justice institutions to let the message trickle down, I will sit here and say that you can't have it all 100. There'll be a few bad nuts. But the bad nuts are the very ones that would give you the name, be it good or bad, that the whole Ghana will hold you.
So they should deal with the bad nuts.
Definitely deal with the bad nuts.
Let me read quickly the statement from the military high command.
But there's something about the military that she's saying. How about the citizens? The respect we must give to authority. Once they say it's a curfew, it means it's a curfew. You go in. You understand? But of late, we are getting people, being recalcitrant. They just feel like they have their own lives to lead and no one can tell them what to do. And those are the things that make the people to come out and start beating you. Because if they say that, look, there's a security threat in this area, everybody, there's a curfew, don't do this. That's it. If they say that we are coming, now they're doing it without any prompting. So they come to search. Just stand by. If you don't have anything, stand by.
So I want to read this and I'll get really 30 seconds of your thoughts on this statement coming from the Ghana Armed Forces. And very briefly, it says that the Ghana Armed Forces is investigating an alleged assault on a journalist, which was reported on Monday, 26 January 2026. The incident was reported to have occurred at the outskirts of Wale Wale in the northeast region, where in recent times there have been reported incidents of attacks on public transport resulting in deaths and injuries. The Ghana Armed Forces wishes to alert the general public that these current happenings in the northeast and upper east regions have resulted in heightened levels of insecurity, which will occasionally necessitate the conduct of military operations without notice. In really 30 seconds, what's your reaction to this statement?
I mean, the Northeast is my adopted home. I say that proudly. And to remind us again of the consequences of unrest in any constituency, in any part of the country. We need development. Ghana, as a country, we are coming from a place that is dark. We are trying to rebuild, to reset. But at the heart of that is security, right? And so it is our individual responsibility as citizens, as journalists, as military, as the executive, to make sure that that security is held with the let me use the word preciousness that it needs, because at the end of the day, without security, we cannot have development, we cannot have progress.
Madam Ayana, 30 seconds.
No, it's the same thing. It's security. And so I would say that we should respect the security agencies. When they come out there, they're also human. And you must realize that sometimes they also lose their lives. And if they are not careful, if they don't show any form of high-handedness, at the end of the day, they also get caught up in those things. So we should at least abide by the laws and make sure that they will also do their job. But if we don't and we want to show bravado, the end is that they have a better way of showing the bravado.
So rights and responsibilities.
Exactly.
Rights and
Dr. Samuel Efie, you have about 40 seconds to tell us your thoughts on this and really your reaction to the reactions that have come in from both the media fraternity as well as the military high command.
Beatrice, I would say that the senseless towards journalists should stop. I think the journalist of this country has had enough of these attacks here and there, and we all will support you. And at the same time, they should also respect journalists, no matter how they trespass or maybe they tend to go beyond their boundaries. you should not maltreat journalists as it has been already seen from these soldiers. And in all, you see that these perpetrators will not be punished as in the past. Things are done. That's why I'm saying that senseless should stop towards these journalists, and we don't expect. And journalists should stand up and protect their own. That profession should be protected and also be guided. If not, some people will take you for granted, and we all support you, and we believe that your profession is a noble profession that should.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samuel Efriye. Just 2 messages from a number of you sending us your messages. Abonti Benjamin says, Beatrice, Supreme Court ruling on Kpandai gives the citizenry hope that all is not lost and the will of the people shall always win over evil machinations. Greetings to the next president of Ghana. I think he's with a Get Connected team. That's Kennedy Japan. And there's also from Kwamlavi of Pokwase. He says that MPP presidential aspirants are wasting their energy to campaign because Ghanaians won't vote for any of them. Okay, so, and perhaps this last message from Mr. Stephen Penn says, good morning, Beatrice. Barbarism should not find space in our forces. The soldiers who inflicted that barbaric act against the law-abiding journalists must be told in plain language that their behavior is medieval. The high command must have them punished to serve as a deterrent to other people. And that's coming from Stephen Penn, in the Upper West region. Thank you. A number of you sending us your messages. Thank you for sending them to us. And also, let me say a big thank you to my panel this morning. Madam Rodelyn Imorayana, Public Interest Advocate, thank you for always being here and joining us. To you as well, Madam Amma Pratt, Press Secretary and Spokesperson for the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. Thank you very much for joining us as well. Earlier, we had Mr. Kofi Bento, who is lawyer and Vice President with the Imani Africa. And of course, we've had as well with us Dr. Samuel Efriye, who is a political analyst. My name is Beatrice Edu. Thank you very much for joining us on The Big Issue this morning. Now,